Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. The bulls maintain the momentum on the Lal Street. The sensex and the nifty gained 2% this week after a strong close on Friday. This is the biggest weekly gain in the last 3 months. Prime Minister Modi speaks to President Trump for the second time in 3 weeks, congratulates him for the success of the Gaza peace plan, reviews the progress on the India-US trade talks. China imposes fresh restrictions on rare earth magnets ahead of the potential meeting between President Xi and President Trump. Industry sources say curbs have been imposed on the export of certain electric vehicle technologies as well, restrictions to kick in from the 8th of November. The board of Tata Trusts get into a huddle after an internal rift became public. Sources say the board meeting is going on smoothly. The agenda for the huddle is the disbursement of about 1,000 crore rupees for philanthropic activities. It has nothing to do with the current rift. For the first time, the government opens the position of Managing Director at State Bank of India to the private sector. Candidates with 21 years of professional experience, including 15 years in banking, will be eligible. Private equity firm Prosus buys a 10% stake in travel portal Ixigo's parent for nearly 1,300 crore rupees. Ixigo to use the funds for expansion and artificial intelligence. Israeli forces begin to withdraw from parts of Gaza after the ceasefire takes effect. Hamas has 72 hours after Israel's withdrawal to release hostages. The US military is likely to deploy 200 soldiers to oversee the ceasefire. President Trump's relentless campaign for the Nobel Peace Prize ends in disappointment. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corno Machado, who is currently in hiding, has been awarded the Nobel. The committee's citation says when authoritarians seize power, it is crucial to recognize courageous defenders of freedom who rise and resist. India and Afghanistan pledge to fight terrorism together as Afghanistan's foreign minister visits New Delhi. India will upgrade its technical mission in Kabul into a full-fledged embassy. Pressure cooker pioneer and the man behind the iconic prestige brand Jagannathan passes away at the age of 82. He revolutionized the cooker market by introducing the gasket release system, a safety innovation that made Prestige a household brand in India. And a giant of a man, Jagannathan there. But let's start with the day's market action. The Lal Street extended yesterday's gains. Nifty ended nearly at a one-month high, led by pharma and financials. For the week, the market gained for the second straight week. That's the Nifty for you, up by about 0.5%. Similar gains for the sensex as well. For the week, 1.5% higher for both the Nifty and the sensex, and the mid-cap index up by about 2%. This is the biggest weekly gain that we've seen in the last 3 months. All frontline indices posting gains. Their capital market and IT stocks also gained 5% each. But staying with equity markets, gold ETFs have seen a strong surge in demand in September, receiving record high inflows. Investments rose over 280% compared to last month. Inflows into SIPs climbed to an all-time high, SIP inflows rising 4%. However, net inflows into equity mutual funds declined for a second consecutive month, dropping 9% from the previous month. In the commodities market, gold prices down below the $4,000 mark for the first time since breaching the milestone earlier this week. This as the dollar strengthened and investors booked profits after Israel and Hamas agreed to a ceasefire deal. Meanwhile, silver rose above the $50 mark for the first time. Momentum in the gold market, strong investment demand and a persistent supply deficit is continuing to support prices. Prime Minister Modi and US President Donald Trump held a telephonic conversation for the second time in 3 weeks. This announced on a post on X. Prime Minister Modi said that he congratulated President Trump on the success of the Gaza peace plan. He also said the two leaders reviewed the good progress achieved in trade negotiations between India and the US and agreed to stay in close touch over the coming weeks. Trump had earlier dialed the Prime Minister on the eve of his birthday. It was the first direct conversation between the two leaders since the Trump administration imposed 50% tariffs on Indian exports. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expects India to buy less Russian oil and pivot its energy imports to the US. In an interview with Fox News, Bessent said that both India and China have played a big role in sustaining Russia's war against Ukraine through continued oil purchases. Take a look.
We're doing a lot on Russia, but the real culprits here have been China and India in terms of buying Russian oil. They are keeping the Russian war machine going, and we put a 25% Russian oil tariff on India. And I think soon we're going to see a rebalancing where they're buying less Russian oil, more American oil. And if we were to do the same thing on China, I think the war would end quickly, but we need our NATO or European allies to join us. It's my strong belief that India is going to start rebalancing over the next few weeks and months, and we will see a diminishment of Russian oil in favor of U.S. oil.
Well, that is the U.S. Treasury Secretary there, and the U.S. Ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, and Deputy Secretary Michael Regas will be in India on a 6-day visit later this week. They are expected to meet Indian government officials to discuss bilateral issues. In a statement, the U.S. State Department said the U.S. will continue to work with India to strengthen our strategic partnership and promote a safer, stronger Indo-Pacific region. The 38-year-old Gore, a close aide of Trump, is the youngest ever U.S. ambassador to India. Indian pharma stocks surging today after the U.S. Senate approved the Biosecure Act. The act will prohibit federal funding for Chinese biotech companies, thereby potentially benefiting Indian pharma companies. However, the bill still needs to pass through the House of Representatives and receive presidential approval to become a law. The U.S. Embassy in India has clarified that the country did not supply any missiles to Pakistan. This has come after reports suggested that the Trump administration allegedly sold missiles to Islamabad. In a statement, the U.S. Embassy said the Department of War released a list of standard contract announcements which referred to an amendment to an existing foreign military sales contract. The embassy further clarified that no part of the contract modification for deliveries of new advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles were done to Pakistan. Now, the board of Tata Trusts is in a meeting after an internal rift became public, though this board meeting has nothing to do with the current rift. The board meeting is going on smoothly. The agenda for the huddle is a disbursement of around 1,000 crore rupees for philanthropic activities. Santya joins us now from outside Taj Hotel in Mumbai, where the Tata Trust board is meeting. Santya, we saw some visuals there of trustees like Venu Srinivasan exiting. What do you know? Or what's going on?
So, Shireen, the meeting started at 10 in the morning, and as you mentioned, that the meeting really didn't have anything to do with various contentious issues the group is facing, but it was actually about allocation of healthcare and disbursement of funding to various philanthropic projects. And for the same, various groups, including some NGO groups as well, were present, and they gave their respective presentations to the board members who were to decide the disbursement of these fundings. At around 3:30, Venu Srinivasan left. The meeting actually took place in 3 phases. The first phase was over by around 11:30 in the morning, and the remaining 2 phases started after that. As of now, from what we are hearing so far, the meeting is going on smoothly as expected, because largely anything contentious was not on the agenda for this meeting, Shireen, especially nothing related to the meeting which took place in Delhi on this Tuesday, which was, which was actually led by Union Minister Amit Shah, Union Home Minister Amit Shah, and in fact the FM was also present in the meeting. Today's Tata Trust meeting was largely about healthcare allocation and philanthropic projects and their fundings. Shri.
All right, Santya, many thanks for joining us at the Trust's meeting there in Mumbai. Shares of IT major TCS under pressure, although its second quarter performance surpassed expectations. The company also announced plans to build 1 gigawatt capacity at its AI data center. The IT major's headcount has fallen below the 6 lakh mark for the first time in over 3 years in Q2. TCS says the workforce changes are being driven by growth and not cost cutting. Speaking to CNBC TV18, TCS CEO K. Krithivasan said the company is advancing its plans to become the world's largest AI-led tech services player via internal investments, workforce expansion and acquisitions. Take a look.
We have to take this ambitious journey and be the largest AI-led services company. Currently, we are looking at about $1 billion, but just to clarify, we will be looking, this will come as equity and debt.
This $1 billion?
1 billion. So my rule of thumb, like what I had is roughly 150 megawatts is $1 billion.
Okay.
Okay, so we are talking about 5 to 7 billion, but I'm not going to be investing all 5-7 billion year on. So it is going to be a 5 to 7 year exercise. We'll do first, what we intend to do now is establish a capacity of 150 megawatt to start with. Which would start in about 18 months' time, by which we should be operational.
Well, that's TCS's K. Krithivasan there on their AI plans. Workspace provider WeWork India making a muted debut on the Lal Street. The stock debuted at 650 rupees a share, almost flat compared to its issue price of 648 rupees. The issue was fully subscribed only on the final day of subscription, with institutional investors leading the demand. It's been a busy week for the primary market, and LG Electronics India rounded it off by garnering record bids. Crossed 4 lakh crores, the most for any Indian IPO. Hormuz is here to tell us more about what other records LG achieved during its IPO. Hormuz.
I've been talking about the frenzy in the IPO markets, but a couple of listings in the past, we've been highlighting those that fell almost 30-40% from their issue price as well. But then comes an IPO like LG, and that shows you the other side of the IPO market as well, the kind of frenzy that the IPO received. The bidding closed for a subscription on Thursday, and it received bids worth over 4 lakh crore rupees, and it became the first such Indian IPO to receive that kind of bids, and easily outbidding Bajaj Housing Finance, which IPO'd last year and had received bids worth over 3.2 lakh crore rupees. Now, the subscription was led by the institutional investors, which aggressively bid for the IPO, and on the final day of the bidding, their portion was subscribed 161 times compared to the total number of shares on offer. They had only 2 crore shares, around about those reserved for them, and they placed bids for almost 338 crore shares. And the non-institutional and the retail portion also saw healthy subscriptions of over 20 times, and the retail portion was subscribed around about 3.5 times in comparison to the total number of shares on offer. But what this has also done is that it has made LG the most subscribed large Indian IPO, and by large I mean whose size is 10,000 crores or more. You take a look at that record was previously held by SBI Cards, and that was subscribed around 26 times, and LG has received almost double of that subscription, or 54 times at the close of bidding on Thursday. And you took a look at the other names as well, be it Swiggy, be it Hyundai. The sheer size of their IPOs has kept those subscription numbers subdued, but LG, despite the larger subscription size, saw very, very healthy subscription figures. And now all eyes on the listing that takes place next week, and it shows this entire week of IPOs has shown us both sides of the IPO market.
Well, Hormuz, many thanks. Ixigo's parent company has sold 10% stake in the travel platform to global tech investor Prosus for 1,300 crores. Prosus can appoint a director to Ixigo's board once the deal is complete. Ixigo has said the company plans to use the funds for acquisitions and to double down on the hotel segment. So that's a big deal there in the travel space. Private sector professionals will now be eligible to apply for senior leadership positions in public sector banks. This will include the position of managing director at State Bank of India. The revised guidelines will allow candidates with at least 21 years of professional experience, including 15 years in the banking sector. So big move there for PSBs. Relief for Vedanta. The Supreme Court has refused to hear a plea seeking the investigation into allegations raised by US-based short seller Viceroy. The petition alleges inaction by regulators SEBI and RBI, along with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. The government argued that the petition looks motivated. The centre also argued it has become a modus operandi of overseas short sellers to release reports and engage in litigation. The Supreme Court has dismissed a PIL seeking a judicial probe into the deaths of children in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan allegedly linked to toxic cough syrups. The plea also sought stricter oversight of pharmaceutical products. The centre argued that the states of Tamil Nadu and Madhya Pradesh are taking the necessary steps. Up next, pressure cooker pioneer and the man behind the iconic prestige brand TT Jagannathan passes at the age of 82. We bring you his life story right after this. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar held bilateral talks with Taliban Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi in the national capital today. This is the first time a top Taliban leader has visited India since they returned to power in 2021. In a press conference, Minister Jaishankar said India is fully committed to the sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence of Afghanistan. He added that India will reopen its embassy in Kabul. President Trump's relentless campaign for the Nobel Peace Prize has ended in disappointment. 58-year-old Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who's currently in hiding, has been awarded the Nobel. The Nobel Committee's citation said that when authoritarians seize power, it is crucial to recognize courageous defenders who rise and resist. Pressure cooker pioneer and the man behind the iconic Prestige pressure cooker, T.T. Jagannathan, passed away at the age of 82. He revolutionized the cooker market by introducing the gasket release system, a safety innovation that made Prestige a household brand in India. Mangala Malu spoke with Jagannathan a few years ago on his pioneering innovation.
In fact, I read a lot about the gasket release system, so I would like you to explain to me exactly what it is. And what is this story? Because it saved 1 million lives.
We found that we were not selling outside South. There was no market because there was something going wrong. So I decided to go find out what was going wrong. And discovered that I traveled UP extensively and discovered that our pressure cookers were known to burst.
Oh.
And the pressure cooker bursting is not is dangerous. It could even kill. And I went to one of our dealers in Lucknow and he showed me his store. He had dozens of Prestige pressure cookers that have burst. So we were losing market share because they don't buy Prestige, it will burst. We had to find out, I couldn't believe that we made pressure cookers that burst because we were very good manufacturing, there's no question about that. So something else had to be the reason. So when I analyzed the reason, I found out it was a spurious safety block. A pressure cooker has a weight valve, which maintains the pressure, but sometimes it can get blocked. When it gets blocked, the safety device is supposed to open up and release the pressure. But safety device is made of a tin bismuth alloy, which is very expensive. So the spurious guys used to make it out of pure aluminum, which won't melt. And so when the weight valve gets blocked, the pressure cooker will burst. And when the Prestige pressure cooker bursts, it's very violent. And so people were just off pressure cookers. So, and the company would have gone bankrupt if we knew that. So what happened was, I put on my thinking, thank God I was an engineer.
The IIT cap.
The IIT, I helped put on my thinking cap and came up with what is called the gasket release system. Actually, it's such a simple thing looking at it now that you wonder why nobody discovered it before. It's just a hole in the lid. But that hole in the lid, what it does is, it does not depend upon the safety plug for secondary safety. The gasket comes out through the hole in the lid and releases pressure if it exceeds cooking pressure.
You did not patent it?
No, it was in fact not a good idea to patent it for two reasons. One is that in the US this used to happen, pressure cookers used to burst, so the US market went away from pressure cookers. That is something I wanted to avoid in India. And India is the largest market of pressure cookers in the world today, 15 million pieces. If we'd allowed pressure cookers to burst, it wouldn't have happened. That was one. So I did not want pressure cookers to get a bad reputation. The second is, if a pressure cooker burst anywhere, everybody thought it was Prestige. So I had to avoid that conception also. So we came up with the idea that we won't patent it.
Well, an end of an era there with the passing of T.T. Jagannathan, giant of a man, as I pointed out, didn't patent that gasket release system because he wanted more companies to benefit from that smart innovation. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. More news and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. From all of us, goodbye. Thanks for watching.